Okay, so while everyone is entering, we're gonna continue. Just tell us what's bringing you joy. We would appreciate that. We want to start on a positive note. So I'm your host. I'm Michelle Goldsmith. I'm the vice president and general manager of the Soundings Trade Only Media Group, the publisher of Soundings Magazine, and the founder of the Women in the Industry programs and events. I also wanted to take a moment to thank so many of you who embraced the challenge and walked 5K for the Global Women's Walk in May. There were more than we expect. Around 1,200 people walked from 5 continents and more than 15 countries. The walk supported Room to Read. I've been speaking with the charity, and we know that the dollars that were raised will pay for, they're not sure where the money's going to go, but they know that it will pay for at least 16 new mentors for an entire year. So if you think about what that will do for girls at risk around the globe, you all did that. And it shows the power of what we can do when we unite together. And look for pictures in the July issue of Trade Only from the walk. So this event and our entire series would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. Each of these companies either has a woman in a key leadership role, offers women's empowerment programs, or has a large female staff. So thank you to Correct Craft, Volvo Penta, Marine Max, CETO, West Marine, and MRAA. I think we can, oh, hello from England, connecting with other women. And that's a great way to bring joy. I think we can all agree that we're living in unprecedented times. Nothing seems ordinary or stable. And we wanted to bring this workshop to you so that we could all discuss it and walk away with some inspiration, some positivity, and some tools that we can use when we go back to lead our teams at our own company. And when I thought about putting this together, of course, the first person I thought of, the calm in the storm, the calm in the chaos, always in my life, is Alicia Rodriguez. As most of you know, Alicia and I have been friends for decades. She has an uncanny knack of presenting a situation or asking a question that can lead you to new solutions and perspectives. She's an award-winning author. Her memoir, The Shaman's Wife, has received numerous accolades and honors. She's a coach and a catalyst for growth and change. And her company, Sophia Associates, has been coaching executives for more than 20 years. Her official bio, so you hear it, is she works with executive women, visionary leaders, and social and creative entrepreneurs who have become disconnected from their purpose or exhausted by the stress of work. She is known for developing leaders to their fullest creative expression so that they can make a difference in the world in a way that holds purpose and meaning for them. Her clients come to Portugal to work with her. She lives in Portugal now, on her Becoming Limitless Unretreats to answer significant questions in their lives and turn those answers into daring, life-changing actions. She brings her life experience to her work. She is the daughter of Colombian immigrants, a business leader. She's lived in 6 countries and traveled to 4 continents. She has 20 years of C-suite level coaching, days in boardrooms with leaders, and nights in rainforests with shamans. She is an intuitive asker of daring questions and an invitation to deeper understanding. So that is Alicia. So I had the good fortune to spend a week with Alicia in Portugal recently, and we spent some time together in her new hometown of Cavaleiro in the Algarve in Portugal, and talked about the times we're in, the challenges that are being faced by leaders today. And I hope the intention today is that we provide you with useful information and that you leave this session with a greater understanding of ways to move forward, to thrive in these uncertain times, and to be inspired. So stay to the end because we have a gift for you from Alicia. and we have announcements about some upcoming events. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you, Michelle. And it was so much fun to have you here. That was great. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Um, just a very few housekeeping notes. You have a chat and you have a Q&A. So the chat is for the chat. But if you do have questions, and my intention is that at the end, I want to take questions, but instead of putting them in the chat, my request is that you put them into the Q&A. And you can make comments, or I might say to you, what do you think about this? You can do that in the chat. Michelle's going to be kind enough to be monitoring both the chat and the Q&A. So quick housekeeping notes. So yes, Michelle and I, and we're not the only ones having this conversation. It's like, how do you lead in uncertain times? And so today I want to challenge you to think at a leadership level. I'm not going to be talking about management stuff, tactical stuff. I really want to provoke a new way of thinking for you. When I coach, I'm always going to the source. Like what's at the core of your behavior or your challenge or whatever it is. And mostly there's, we have belief systems. So today I want to, you'll see one of the things I tell people is I never regurgitate information that you can read elsewhere. Although I do have some sources for you at the end and some recommendations for reading that I think you'll find useful. Michelle will be sending out a PDF of the presentation for you or for anyone who's registered. So, if you don't want to take notes, or if it's overwhelming or something, just know that, Michelle will be sending out the PDF. I'm also going to be looking at the chat. Can't see the chat and the Q&A both, but I'm going to be looking at the chat. So let's begin. Let's see how do I do this here. This is a new platform, so I'm getting used to it. So I really like quotes. I find them very inspiring. And this is one that I found, and some of you may know about Arundhati Roy. She's an author, an activist. I find her very inspirational. And she says, another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. And why I wanted to start today on that quote is it's so easy to get stuck in what's happening now, in the present moment, and all the chaos and confusion. And today is about rising above that and challenge yourself and your teams to rise above it. So we're looking at something completely different now. We're looking at a new kind of leadership, because it can't be what it was before. So I want to start with defining leadership and what it means to be a leader today. And it's not the same as before. So one of the things you want to think about is in the midst of chaos. If you see me sitting over here, looking over here, it's because I have some notes. In the midst of chaos and uncertainty, how do you find ground in a groundless world, right? What worked before limits you. And we tend to rely on the past and what worked before, but now you're going to find that that kind of thinking will limit you. I want you to, as you go through your days, pay attention to where is your attention going? Are you a leader who thinks at an elevated place where your attention is on kind of the long term? Or are you getting stuck in the weeds? Because if you're stuck in the weeds, it's not going to work in these uncertain times. And what is the role of leadership today? So in the chat, I would like to hear from you. It's like, how do you define your leadership today? What would you say? It's like, I'm a leader who, or I believe that leadership today is, I'm going to give you just a minute or so to put it in the chat. and just think about what I just said about, elevating your point of view about leadership. So I'm going to just watch the chat for a minute or so. And then I'm going to provide another kind of definition for you afterwards. So don't be shy. I'm looking at the chat. Trying to be inspiring, encourage my team, find solutions in a changing market. And today, we're going to be talking about all this change that's happening. Who else? Rooted in being authentic and realistic. We're going to talk a little bit about that, Don. Expectations, deadlines, capable, smart people getting out of their way, lifting each member, being supportive while being realistic. Set the tone of attitude. Yes, your team absolutely does feed off your attitude. Outside the box, breaking the mold. I mean, it's hard being a leader today. It really is. I mean, the conversations I have, it's difficult. There's never been a time like now. Pushing people to be accountable and responsible. I'll give you a couple of seconds more before I go on. So these are all yes. And here's an alternative definition, if you will. Organizational leadership today means building an organization. So I'm looking at it from an organizational point of view that is a model for the world it hopes to create. My emphasis, it's about the world that you want to create. That model demonstrates, displays, shows, exemplifies for all to see the better world that it hopes to spark. And that's really the tone that I want to set today. Is leadership today is not about, the focus isn't about solving problems. All right. It doesn't mean you don't solve problems. It means the focus is not about solving problems. The focus of leadership today in this kind of environment is focusing on the world you want to create or the organization you want to create. It is a forward looking. You're grounded in the present, but you're still looking forward. Like, what is the world that you want to create? Because in difficult times, your people are going to look to you and say, for the sake of what are we going through this? And you have to have an answer for that, right? So keep going. I want you to think about this. You've heard probably the term servant leadership before. Maybe you've heard organizational agility. So the immediate focus is on agility. And that's, I think someone said about change, moving with change versus sustainability in the sense that we are not maintaining what is in the long term. We are moving, you're not maintaining. The balance looking inward to support people and outward to adapt to change. So you're doing both at the same time. You're staying grounded in groundlessness, but how do you do that? It's achieved by staying rooted in one's values and your personal and the collective integrity. And someone mentioned authenticity, which is along the same lines, right? And you become the person that nurtures the best of your culture. These are the ways that you stay grounded in a groundless world. And it starts so much with you. And I always look at it as amplifying out, like the who you be as a leader. You're supporting your people and you're branching it out and you're engaging the world around you in that collective integrity about what it means to create a desired future. And at the same time, you have to be moving on ground that is constantly moving. So this idea of being agile says you have to teach critical thinking skills because you as a leader cannot be everywhere all the time, right? You have to teach people how to think critically so that they can make their own decisions. And Julie says, and being able to ignore the criticism and naysayers. Yes, because you get hit with a lot of negativity, right? And so this is why you stay grounded in this collective vision of your future. And it has to be repetitive. You have to repeat it. And at the same time, it's like, and I don't sail, but anyone who sails will say, you chart a course, but eventually you're going to go off course and you recalibrate. You go off course, we recalibrate. Leadership is doing the same thing, right? You're constantly recalibrating. This is the agility part, so that you can meet the needs of the present while staying focused on that future vision that you want to create for your people and for your communities, right? So I just lost my PowerPoint and I don't know how that happened. Hold on. I need Ryan. Ryan, how did that happen?
I'm not sure, Alicia. Just try it again for one moment.
Okay, hold on.
Go back into the same way you did it previously.
Okay, hold on.
Sorry, Michelle, I'm trying to talk to her with you at the same time.
Okay, so I have to reload. Okay. Did it come back?
Yep, you're back.
Yep, good. Okay, back with you. Now, let's go back here where I am. So I actually, as I talk about agility and being able to stay grounded and groundlessness, I want to turn it over to Michelle, who has a really interesting story about, wait a minute, I'm not sure why this is doing this. Here we go. About Everest. So most of you know that she's been doing these amazing treks. So Michelle, let's talk a little bit about the Khumbu Glacier and your experience of trying to stay grounded and groundlessness.
You hear me, Alicia? I'm having a little technical difficulty.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, what I said to Alicia as we were talking about this is, maybe it's because I did my trek to Everest, but this year reminds me of the Khumbu Icefall, which is kind of a puzzle of a glacier of ice that everyone has to climb up when they go up Everest. And it's a glacier that's constantly moving. So every time that you think that you've got your ropes and your ladders and everything is set, so resources, and you put them in place, what happens is that the glacier moves and you have to move those resources and move those ladders. And it's a question of adapting and speed and agility in order to be able to do that. And communication.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Michelle, I have a question about that. When you're there, how do you anticipate how to move forward?
I think it's two ways. First of all, it's gathering information and talking to people. And second of all, it's working together with your team.
Yeah. You want to say a little bit more about that?
Well, you have to have a team that you trust and that you're transparent with. That if you have to shift those ladders, that you can easily tell them why you're doing it, what benefit it will have, the risk that's there, and what it's going to take to do it.
You're back.
Is that better? Oh, Ryan, it looks like you got us all back. Thank you.
You're back.
Regulator, you say that you're having technical difficulties. Did what Ryan just did help with your technical difficulties? Please let me know in the chat. But I would say that, it's a time that you have to treat people in terms of what's happening to them as human beings. You have to show your vulnerability, but still be professional and have your boundaries, and be clear about what resources you have, what resources you don't have, and that things are definitely going to keep shifting and that you have to do it together.
Yeah. Thanks.
Does that answer? Because I was going through technical difficulties, so I lost the conversation for.
But we could hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I would say yes to everything that Michelle just said, and I want to add a couple of things. So these are kind of like new skills that your typical leadership development courses don't really speak about, but they are so incredibly important right now, given the kind of uncertain environment that you're in. And they're sensing, intuition, and holding space. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. So intuition, it's a way, like when I work with clients, a lot of them don't understand the role of intuition and sensing, and they've never really focused on it. Especially in Western cultures, it's very like empirical and evidence-based. Yet all of us have had like what we call a hunch or a feeling or intuition or whatever. And so what I tell my clients is there's ways of developing intuition and sensing abilities that tap the inherent wisdom and the tacit knowledge, in addition to, I'm not saying it replaces, but in addition to data analysis, to regulate those shifts and position people effectively. And this is like kind of what Michelle is saying when she says you adjust where your resources are placed, right? And so, but there is a sensing about it. Sometimes you don't have evidence and you can match it with data, but sometimes you have to go with all the knowledge and wisdom that you've accumulated in your years, and don't discount that. And then the leader becomes the container for their team and what I would call the stable point of reference. And so you are the grounding for your team. They look to you to be able to move forward. And so that sense of having transparency, what Michelle said about why are we doing this? For the sake of what are we shifting? For the sake of what are we changing the strategy? You have to give people the why. You can't it's not a command and control environment. It's not, without being transparent and being authentic, leadership today really doesn't work. It's based on the old ways of being. Also holding space for emergence by listening deeply. So that assumes that you have developed a team and you're constantly developing your team to think critically and to be the best at what they're at, what their role is. But you have to listen to them and engage all of your sense-making capabilities, but those of the collective as well. And so you don't want people on your team who all think the same way. You want people who think differently. Yes, it is an interesting way to phrase it. The leader is the container because it does open up new possibilities, right? And they're looking to you for that grounding. So and I'm going to talk a little bit about self-care because that's an aspect of how you can ground in uncertainty.
Alicia, can I add to that a little bit? Because I think there's one other aspect of it, which is that as a leader, you also have to be willing to take risk. I mean, we took risks this morning. We're using a new platform. We had a little bit of technical difficulty with it, but you have to be open to the new tools, AI tools, platform tools, EOS style tools that, especially in these times when situations are difficult, where it gives you more efficiency, it gives you better use of time, but you have to also be willing to take that risk, knowing that it may not turn out the way that you want to, but you may have a great learning from it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that kind of brings me to the next point, where a leader leans into the emerging future, and that includes things like technologies, to create possibilities in the face of chaos. So there's this leaning in that happens in leadership right now, as opposed to the resistance to the shifting environment, right? And let me see if I'm doing this correctly. So I hope you can see that. I'm going to read you this quote because I found it really interesting. We are in the midst of a crisis that is beckoning us, and it's my italics, toward a different future possibility. One characterized by harmony, balance, resilience, and generativity. The purpose of the leadership quest today will be to make this potential a possibility. This will require leaders who are self-aware, mindful, and operate from a conscious understanding of the interconnectedness and interbeing of everything. Without this felt sense of interrelatedness, they will not be able to make life-affirming decisions. It is the role of the leader, and indeed each of us, to undertake a journey toward actualizing our highest future potential in the service of a regenerative world. This is who you have to be as a leader. You have to be able to, you're kind of like on this quest, and you're showing people that it's all connected. So whatever happens in the marine industry is going to be affected by so many other different kinds of industries as well. And what you realize is how interdependent we all are on different aspects of business, even like bringing art and design into things. All of this is our interconnected world. And what happens in one place of the world or what happens in another industry is going to affect you. So you as a leader have to allow the space and time to be tapping into a network that's larger than you've ever had to tap into, because you understand that what happens in the outer world may also affect your business in some way. And so this is generative. You are, when I said you're not focused on the status quo, you're not focused on problem solving, you're focused on generating, using the tools that are available to you, teams, technology platforms. You're focused on generating a new kind of future that is more harmonious, okay? And creating more possibilities, even in the face of all this chaos that's happening. So that's a big order for leaders today, right? Now let's see, next.
Do any of you feel that you're doing that today, and what's working best for you right now?
I like Lori said, lead by example. Listen to those who are leading to be the person or leader that you would want to follow.
True. Yeah, let us know in the chat.
Anybody? Could you say your question again, Michelle?
I'm wondering if you go back to your prior slide and the quote that you spoke about, in terms of the way that people are being mindful and aware, and the way that they're using resources. Just give us some examples of how you're doing that today and what's working for you.
Allow others to fail. Don't discourage attempts. Nourish the outliers. Don't discourage them. Short, specific goals. Regular opportunities to carry. Listening.
Yeah. And
so
encourage others to be part of the change. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. And listening to Garnet, that's the holding space part, the deep listening part. so that they can be part of it, so that they do buy into this possibility that you want to create for your business.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay. All right. And so I second Lisa, when you create change, listen to what is working, constantly researching new technology, team ideas, and implementing those that make sense for the business. Yeah. Oh, I love that handwritten note.
Yes,
All
sometimes we still write.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Yeah. And pivoting a lot. Yeah. So that's the agility that we're talking about, Kirsty. So to do all of this, you personally as a leader, you really have to practice self-care. You have to take care of yourself. It's not an option not to take care of yourself, because if you are at that level and you're holding space and you are that container, that leadership container for the work and for your people, it means that you have to take care of yourself. Personally, one of the things that I do is I limit my intake of information, because I found that I was overwhelmed and it was affecting me emotionally. And so I make very conscious choices around what intake, just like I make conscious choices of what I eat so that my body is nourished and strong. I make conscious choices about the information I take in and the sources of that information. I'm very intentional about that. So I want you to, if anybody's open to doing it in the chat, what are some ways that you practice or can commit to practicing self-care? I'm really interested in seeing what kinds of habits or activities or behaviors, what do you do for self-care now, or what might you intend to do in the future? So you can write that in the chat. I'm bad at this. Clarity breaks. That's great. Morning yoga, walking every day with intention.
I loved last March when Melina was on, and she said that she puts Taylor Swift, one song of Taylor Swift on, and she dances before she goes into a serious Zoom meeting.
That's a great one. Self-care is so tough. Yes. Twice a week and a massage every other one.
And self-care goes beyond eating and working out. Self-care is also time for stillness and quiet. It could be being out in nature, reading books. That's a good one.
So, I want to address something. Intentionally schedule me time. One of the things that I tell my clients is, especially if they end up having schedules where they're back-to-back meetings or things. I have this saying, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. Oh, you ride your horse. That's wonderful. If it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. So just like you make appointments with someone else and you wouldn't consider blowing them off and ghosting them for that appointment, you need to make appointments with yourself. If that helps you to put it in the calendar and hold that as sacred time for yourself, whether it's, riding your horse, doing yoga, or just quiet time, going for a walk around the block, whatever it is. So it's really important. People working out every morning, read at lunchtime instead of watching TV. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, for me, the walking is as much mental as it is physical, because I wind up doing voice memos to myself and get ideas. There's something about the rhythm of it and just being out in fresh air that all of a sudden all the ideas come. So I would tell you that you'll be surprised that it's as much mental as it is physical. Those endorphins definitely help.
Yeah. I love that what Nancy just said. No one defends their to-do list, but they always defend their calendar. Why scheduling the time works for me. Me too. And so you can see these cliffs behind me. I live here. And for me, my grounding is walking the cliffs in the morning. And it's amazing, especially as a writer, how many ideas come to me when I'm just walking out in nature and listening to the environment and not really having noise in my head. So that's my time to like my stillness time, even though I'm in motion. Inspiring podcast. Great. So we started this with a question. What's joy got to do with it? And the reason we asked is because joy is the antidote to hopelessness. And, you know, right now, I've had so many conversations with people who feel hopeless. They're not dealing well with the changes in the world. And so what joy has to do with it is, you know, this is where we reconnect to the joy of life and what's positive and life-giving and generative in life. And it's like you can have pizza night or something, whatever it is that brings you joy. But think about not only joy in your life, but how do you bring joy into your teams? How do you bring joy into your organization? Like the walk the challenge that you sponsored, Michelle. Speak a little bit about the kinds of comments you got about that, because I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, you know, last January. It was before inauguration, and I just I wanted to later in the spring provide reminders of our humanity and our kindness, knowing that there would be some change that was going to happen, that things were going to shift. And I went to the people that we do our Mets trade panel with and said, I think we should do a global walk. It's a way to gather. It's a way to be in community. It's a way to have a ripple effect that would really help young girls across the globe, and a way to get everyone out and enjoying nature. And it's really been humbling to see how it just blew up and how much fun people had. I mean, looking at the photos, I mean, you can go to Facebook or go to LinkedIn and just put in, you know, hashtag Global Women's Walk or hashtag Global Women's Walk 2025 and see all the pictures. And people made T-shirts and wore different colors, and entire companies, regulators on this call, the entire company walked together. Bat Cove, the entire company walked together. IMTRA walked together. It was amazing to see that there were a group of companies in South Africa that all joined together, gave everyone time that morning off to walk, and then they sponsored a breakfast. So, you know, as I think about it, and you think, I know a lot of you know what the blue zones are, and they're studying why people live to be so old in those blue zones. And one of the things that happens in those blue zones is community. And this was a way to create community. And we started that walk, but there's nothing saying that any of those companies or any of those people couldn't then move that forward and say, you know what, we're going to do that once a quarter. You don't have to wait till the next women's walk next May. But it was just great to see everyone out together, being happy together.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that, you know, we can't look at that as something frivolous or something aside from the work or besides the work. I think that kind of sense of joy and playfulness right now has to be integrated into how we lead, which is a little different than what most people might think or say. But I just, given the responses that you had and that interaction, that building of community. And again, I go back to the leader is the container for this, right? And so I want you to think about, you know, after we get off this call, it's like, how are you bringing this into your organizations or into your teams so that you're building this sense of community? because when things get difficult or scary, that's you look to each other for support, not just to the leader, but you look to each other as well. And joy is part of building that community. So I want you to think about that.
Yeah, we have a friend who says, "How have you delighted your customers lately?"
Yes.
And I would say, "How have you delighted your staff lately?"
Right.
Especially for those of you that are together that aren't working remote. It's a little bit more difficult when it's remote, but there are ways to do it and surprise people and acknowledge them. And even when we did our workplace study, that desire to be seen, heard, acknowledged came through, and the importance of the way a leader does that definitely came through in the data. And of course, if you want access to that study, just email me. I'll put my email in the chat, and I'm glad to send it to you.
Yeah. So Julie mentioned about inspiring podcasts, and Michelle said, great idea. Any examples? And Julie said, The Diary of a CEO. I like that too. Jay Shetty, not a fan of Jay, sorry. But another one is The School of Greatness by, I think it says Lewis Howe. That's another really good podcast that I really enjoy. So just if anybody else has podcasts that are inspiring, please put them in the chat and share with other people. I think that's also I love podcasts. It's easy to cook and listen to podcasts. So the Jamie Kern Lima podcast. Oh, good. I have to find these. Okay. Okay. Next slide. Let's see. Oops. Wait. I think I missed one. No. Okay. Hold on. So yeah, here we go. Okay. For those of you who have heard some of the webinars that I've done, if you recall, I've talked about two, what I call stances, the reactive versus the creative stance. And so this is when I said to you, you kind of move away from problem solving or the knee-jerk reaction that you have, or trying to avoid an undesired consequence. And you start kind of shifting your focus and your attention to creating a desired future and generating new ways to thrive in the current environment and beyond. So the question that I want you to hold and that I would love for you to share with your teams is, what is the future you want to create? And that is a creative stance. It generates new ideas. It generates new ways of thinking. It generates diversive thought. So these are the kinds of questions that need to change. It's not a problem solving question, it's a generative question. Generative questions are meant to manifest something that doesn't yet exist. So what is the future you want to create is a question that I would love for you. And I love that, how have you delighted yourself lately is also a good one. Yeah. So again, we're talking about a creative stance. And then what can you do now? Some of the things we've talked about: make space for joy, kindness, generosity, and listening deeply, right? Listening to your team, listening to yourself. So let's not forget that. Demonstrate your own humanity, vulnerability, and engagement with the unknown. And that's the authenticity piece. Guess what? You do not have to have all the answers. You do not have to know everything. You just have to know how to move forward and how to enlist the brilliance that is already in your collective environments and in your organizations. Nurture a spirit of community aligned with what is best in all of you. There's no more Lone Ranger thing. This is about bringing people together in ways that generate joy, hope, new ideas. So the Global Women's Walk was one way. Maybe there are service experiences that you can do with your teams. Is there collective learning and opportunities? Town halls. So think of ways that you can bring that collective and the best of that brilliance together. And then, as I said, be careful what you ingest. And I'm talking about, someone mentioned negativity before. So be careful about how much negativity you take in, and also how much data, because there's so much data. And you can easily go into data overload and lose sight of the, what is it that you're trying to focus on? What is it that you're going to create, right? Okay. Next question, next slide. Okay, another really quote. Some of you may have heard this. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Technology is a great example of that. Things that exist today, there was nothing like that, even 5-10 years ago. So this is what I'm talking about, taking a creative stance and having this generative, in other words, generating a new kind of future. This is where the leader needs to be today in order to navigate what you don't know is coming, right? Uncertainty.
Steve Jobs was great at that. He was like, how am I going to do the data? What I want to work on doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And I remember being in a room with kind of all the leaders of Warner Media a few years ago. And the woman who had produced the documentary on RBG, she said, if we had just gone off of data that came from our readership, that documentary never would have been made. Sometimes you have to take a chance and go out and do something new, knowing that what you're doing will be embraced.
Right. Right.
I didn't know that we'd have 1,200 people walk.
Yeah, you're right.
That was a good idea.
Be the outlier. I like that, Julie. Yeah.
Yeah. Henry Ford said, if I asked customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Absolutely. On the nail.
Yeah. Because that's the paradigm. That's the limitation, right? To create is to create something that doesn't exist yet. To innovate is to create faster horses. In other words, you're innovating something that already exists. But creation actually starts with nothing. It doesn't exist. And that's how you manifest. And that's what you have to generate. These new kinds of ideas that you have to allow the space for people to feel safe so that they can tell you what their ideas are and not feel like they're being judged or diminished or laughed at or any of that. So this is what I mean about you being the container for this. You have to make sure that everyone feels safe in generating these new ways of thinking, right? And they come from different generations. It doesn't matter if you're a 25-year-old or a 65-year-old, we all have ideas, right? As I was doing this research for today, I came across this term called thrivability. To be honest with you, I've never heard the term before. And what it means in essence, it means the ability to thrive or flourish, going beyond mere survival and encompassing well-being, prosperity, and positive impact at all levels, from individual to global. It's a concept that emphasizes enabling life to thrive, again, generative, not just survive, by creating the conditions for thriving and creating a future where all can flourish. At the most basic level, thrivability calls for thinking about what thriving would look like in your context and working to cultivate that. So that's the mind shift that you have to make as a leader. You're not just maintaining or trying to manage through today's environment. You need to work at the thrivability level where you are creating a future, but you're creating in the present moment, you are creating the conditions for your people, your clients, your business to thrive. So the question becomes, as a leader, and this is a great question to work on with your teams, what does it mean to create the conditions for us to thrive? What does that mean? That would be a generative conversation. That would be a great conversation. How do we create these conditions for us to flourish and our business to thrive, given that we are where we are today? So a lot of what's happening now with leaders is you have to start asking different questions, not the same old questions, but really out of the box questions, right?
And it is a different question, because I don't know about the rest of you, but thinking about thriving hasn't been something on the recent agenda, especially with everything that's coming at you. It feels chaotic. It feels shifting. It feels like you're in the weeds. It feels like you're trying to stay above water. And to shift that mindset to say, all right, what creativity do we have and how can we use it so that not only are we above water, but we're thriving? That's a different conversation.
Yeah, it is. And that is the conversation of leadership right now, right? So a couple of things on how that manifests in organizations, right? Creating a work environment where employees are healthy, happy, and engaged, fostering a sense of purpose and belonging. And we've talked about this when we said, well, what are the things that you're doing to bring community together? How are you holding the container so people feel safe to give you their best ideas? The communities, designing sustainable and equitable communities that provide access to resources, opportunities, and social connections. And then environments, creating ecosystems that are resilient and abundant, supporting biodiversity and natural processes. These are all things for you to think about after today, and really maybe take this to your teams and say, what does it mean to thrive for us, even in the midst of this? And so that is the biggest mind shift right now. And that is the leadership conversation that you're in.
Alicia, do you want to elaborate on any of those three?
So
kind of give some real world situations for those three.
Yeah, so we've talked about like creating a work environment where employees are happy, healthy, and engaged, fostering purpose and belonging. So the kinds of things that we said, like when we talked about town halls, where we talked about the global walk, where you're talking about things that you do together in service of, and it doesn't always have to be work related, right? It could be giving someone who comes up with a brilliant idea and saying, pull together a team and come back to me with a proposal on that, right? That's very, very practical, right? In communities, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, we've moved away from hierarchies in some ways, but not necessarily in other ways. Are you providing opportunities to everyone? Are you being equitable about the way you provide these opportunities for learning and growth in your organization? So that's something for you to think about. And then ecosystems, remember I said the leader has to understand that we are all interconnected. That I love the word interbeing. Someone gave me that word a while back. And so are you networking with other people in other industries who actually affect your industry? That's an ecosystem. Are you thinking at that level, the bigger level, not just in your industry, but are you thinking outside of your industry in ways that these ecosystems can come together and be mutually supportive in service of thriving? So those
I'm a huge proponent of that. I think you know that, I like to get outside of the bubble. I did it last week. There was a free event for a full day on branding, social media, entrepreneurship, leadership, and people that have nothing to do with the marine industry. But I was curious how other industries are utilizing similar skills to what we have to have in marine in order to thrive. And, if you can find events like that are in your area that get you outside of that bubble, I think it just expands thinking and ideas. We tend to stay within our industry and within that bubble. And I think going outside of it just expands so much of what you get.
Right. Well, it's part of like when you were going to the, what's the New York conference, the Fast Company conference?
Yeah. The Innovation Festival.
The Innovation Festival, where there's all people from all kinds of industries who are attending, and they're all having a conversation about futures,
Yeah.
Right. And new ideas and things. And that stimulates you to like start producing new kinds of programs for your industry. That's a perfect example of being able to understand that there is a collective and an ecosystem that you're all working within that is outside of what's obvious and what you've done in the past. I want to address something that Julie said, because I think that's really true. A team leader needs to have the courage to challenge the status quo as they advocate for change. Yes, this takes courage, and you have to be comfortable with advocating for yourself and for your team and for change. And that can be a really difficult challenge in organizations, and especially in corporations. So I want to acknowledge that. But I think you can, if you can like have this conversation at different levels in your organization about thrivability and shift that mindset. Sometimes it's just little by little and just consistent. That consistency is what shifts it. So you're not building resistance, you're building engagement. So that's a different way of looking at it. So I just wanted to address that because I think it's absolutely true. And then this quote: thrivability emerges from each of us holding the persistent intention to be generative. Again, this is kind of like how you advocate for change, right? It's not just you, it's all of you. This is to say, to create more value than we consume. And so there's a focus on what is the value that we want to create for our clients, for the business, and why this requires a mind shift to do that. So I hope that helps, Julie, in terms of like being courageous in those conversations, because they are difficult conversations. Okay. Let's see. So it's a final thought, but I'm not done yet. So just to give you a heads up. And I really firmly believe this: no amount of re-engineering, reorganization, and retraining will work if the fundamental intentions and consciousness are still rooted in the past. In short, the foundations of a thrivable organization cannot be built on profit maximization. That's the old world thinking. The inner conditions of leadership have a profound impact on the outer reality. Only when leaders stay steadfastly true to the purpose of the organization, uphold its capacity to be a regenerative and healing force, and take actions and decisions rooted in their intention, can they propel an organization to move to its next stage of evolution. That is thriving. So the focus isn't where it's always been, is let's make more money, right? The focus is what is the future that we want to create. And the money, if you're doing it right, the profitability, the numbers will add up. And so it's, again, this is the mind shift. And it's a difficult one, I'll admit. But it means you have to hold the vision for that possible future and be consistent and build teams that also engage with that vision. And they're generative. They're generating new ways of thinking, new ideas, new products, new services, all of that. Mind shift or heart shift? Great question. I think it's a little bit of both. That's a very good question. So a couple more slides that I want to share with you, and then I want to take, I want to go to the Q&A. Let's see, there we go. So, so Michelle mentioned a gift. So I have a new book called Everyday Epiphanies, Uncovering Wisdom in Ordinary Moments. This is actually a second edition of a book I wrote in 2007, because a lot's changed in my life and my work since 2007. But it's very practical, and it's based on a lot of client conversations that I've had. You know, how do I set boundaries? How do I take a creative stance when I feel like I'm challenged? What are some things that I can do to cultivate mindfulness and resilience in myself? So that these are, and it's the kind of book where you can just turn to any page. You don't have to like read it cover to cover if you don't want to, but it's very, very practical. In it, I put very practical things that you can do on a daily basis to build that resiliency for yourself and for the environment that you're in. So I wanted to offer that to people. You scan the QR code, you will see where you can purchase the book. So you can do it either on the PowerPoint or on the handout. Thank you. Yeah, I really want to give back something. So this is why I do it. And then that's me, but you can read about me later. I wanted to provide some resources that I found as I was looking at doing all of this. So if anybody's interested in reading more about thrivability, these are great. And there's this really amazing, I really encourage you to look at it. This is a very short YouTube video. It's called The Power of a Courageous Question. And remember, I said to you, we need to start asking different questions, right? And she is amazing. She's the CEO of Psi Partners, which is a really forward-looking consultancy that if I were to ever work for someone as an employee, they would be like the only people I would ever work for. But it's really interesting, and it's really interesting her point of view. So that will be in the
and two things there. If you scan the QR code, it's a free copy of the book. You put in your email, and basically the PDF of the book is sent to your email. And a copy of this PowerPoint is going to be sent in PDF form, is going to be sent to everyone who registered for this event. So all those resources that Alicia was talking about will come to you within the PowerPoint.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot to take in an hour or so. And I encourage you to take some quiet space somewhere and go through the PowerPoint, go through the PDF, look at some of these resources, buy some of these books that I'm recommending. And interesting enough, one of them was written in 2013. So I thought that was really interesting. And I do hope that you enjoy the book. And my only ask about the book is, if you read it, please give me a review on Amazon. It is so incredibly important that books be reviewed. So that's my only ask in return for the offer. So I hope you all do that for me. Do we have questions and answers?
Yeah, I want to give a little bit of information before we do Q&A, just in case people start falling off. So you're going to receive a survey about today's event. Please fill it out. As you know, your opinions matter, and we decide on topics and formats and other things based on what you tell us. I thank you for bearing with us as we tried a new platform today. Technology is great when it works. I wanted to let you know that our next event will be in October. Soundings Trade Only is planning a large event with the IBEX team. I'm actually bringing a little bit of a similar format to what that innovation festival that Alicia touched on with me is like to IBEX. So we're going to have 35-minute educational sessions that are going on 3 simultaneous theaters on Wednesday morning. So if you go to ibexshow.com/special events, monitor that, because we'll be announcing the speakers and the panels and what's going to happen. It's going to be fast-paced and really, really interesting. And there's a lot to go on with it. It's called MIX, the Marine Ideas Exchange. And second of all, there will be a women's event during IBEX. I don't have the timing, but Marcy Offner, who runs Women in Composites, and myself are the 2 panelists talking about women within the marine industry. So look out for information on the IBEX site about that. There may be a business webinar coming from Soundings Trade Only in July. We are putting that together now. More details to come probably within the next 2 weeks.